As tension increases in the Crimea amid the arrival of Russian troops in the region, let's see what the press is saying about how this could affect the Middle East. Our monitor features the article "Turkey boxed in by Russian moves in Crimea." The article says rising tensions between the US and Russia over Ukraine will most likely make the Syrian crisis more intractable. Meanwhile, the issue of Crimean Tatars could add fuel to an already tense political environment in Turkey, where the government is fighting serious corruption charges. The article says Ankara, which views Crimea as important due to the Tatar population, is concerned that if matters get out of hand, the Tatars will be the first to suffer. Such an outcome would create international as well as domestic problems for the government of Prime Minister Erdogan at a time when it is embroiled in a tense political war at home and has little time to spare for foreign policy issues. The article adds Turkey and Russia have been at serious loggerheads over Syria, supporting different sides in the civil war, but the two countries have not allowed this to cause tensions in bilateral ties to date. The article concludes diplomats also pointed out, however, that if there were an East-West type escalation over Crimea reminiscent of the Cold War years, Turkey might find its delicate balancing act increasingly difficult to sustain, given that it is a NATO member. Joining us today to discuss is Omar Ismail, Labour Party political analyst. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Ismail. My first question is, we're discussing Turkey today in relation to the Russian occupation of Crimea. What do you think Turkey's reaction is to the occupation, especially given that it's a NATO member?
Well, it is indeed. Turkey today is hot on the trail of political settlement. It what's happening in Crimea in particular, and what's happening in Ukraine as a whole. It affects Turkey directly in terms of it's a neighbor to a number of countries that border the Black Sea. And as you quite rightly mentioned, Turkey is a NATO member, and any military threat to this area would affect Turkey too. I don't think the matter will escalate to become a military confrontation between NATO and Russia. The indications are that both sides are actually going towards a political dialogue rather than a armed confrontation.
And with corruption allegations plaguing Erdogan, do you think this will make a difference to his political stance in the country?
Well, it depends on which side of the country you talk about. If you go to the European side, I think his popularity is rock bottom. But if you go to the bulk of Turkey, which lies in the East Asia side, I think the party has enjoys a huge popularity, and I personally don't think that what's happening in terms of corruption in Turkey that affects the Hurriyet and Adalet party it would affect them a great deal in the coming election for the mayoral election for Istanbul. And obviously, it is known now that Erdogan is aiming to become to stand for election for the presidential election.
And how do you think the Ukrainian crisis will affect Russian-Western relations in general with regard to the Middle East?
I think now Russia in general is trying to carve a position within the Middle East politics, and it has succeeded a great deal. We see now what's happened to Syria in the middle of 2013. We see that Egypt now is directing its attention towards Russia again. The influence of Russia is increasing in the Middle East. The influence of Russia on the European Union, it is also can be felt, especially with the Ukraine issue and the Crimean issue as well at the moment. I think that what one can observe that there is a huge sort of a directional movement to align the the Russian to the stance that the Soviet Union took in the past. It won't be the same, but I think Russia is claiming back its influence in the area, and it has done it quite well, I think, under Putin. Can say it came to the after the presidential election, the last presidential election. So there is a development in the foreign policy towards Europe and the Middle East, and I guess that in the next year or two we will see much stronger Russia in terms of its politics and an influence on what happens in the Middle East and Europe.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Ismail.
Pleasure.
Thanks. That was political analyst for the Labour Party, Omar Ismail. For more updates, please visit levant.tv. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.